Chocky continues as read by the bathroom reader. I am covering for the Plurality Report, who is currently on a quest to find his spirit animal through the use of ayahuasca. Good luck with that. Chapter 10. The rest of the week went uneventfully until Friday. I had to work late that evening and had dinner in London. At almost 10 o'clock I arrived home to find Mary on the telephone. She finished her call just as I came into the room and pressed the rest without putting the receiver on it. "Matthew's not back," she said. "I'm ringing the hospitals." She consulted a list and began to dial again. After about 2 or 3 more calls, she came to the end of her list and laid the receiver in its rest. I had got out the whiskey. "Drink this. It'll do you good." She took it gratefully. "You've tried the police?" "Yes. I called the school first. He left there at the usual time, all right, so then I tried the police and gave them particulars. They've promised to ring us if they have any news." She took a drink of whiskey. "Oh, David, thank goodness you're back. I'd got to imagining all sorts of things. I hoped everything would be all right once that Chocky business was over, but he's gone all closed in. He doesn't say anything, not to me, and then going off like he did on Monday. You don't think—" I sat down beside her and took her hand. "Of course I don't, and you mustn't either. He's kept everything so bottled up." It did come as a shock to him. Whatever Chocky was, he'd got used to having her around. Suddenly losing her upset him, knocked the bottom out of things for him. It needed some adjustment, but he's making it all right. "You really think that? You're not just saying it?" "Of course I do, darling. I'm perfectly certain that if he were going to do anything silly, he'd have done it a fortnight ago. And he wasn't near that even then. He was distressed and pretty wretched, poor boy. But nothing of that kind ever entered his head. I'm sure of it." Mary sighed. "I hope you're right. Yes, I'm sure you are. But that makes it all the more mysterious. He must know how we'll feel. He's not an insensitive boy." "Yes. That's what's worrying me the most." Neither of us slept much that night. I rang the police the next morning. They were sympathetic, doing all they could, but had no news. The gloominess of the breakfast table subdued even Polly. We questioned her, though without much hope. Matthew no longer confided in her, but there was just the chance that he might have let something slip. Apparently he had not, at least nothing that Polly could remember. We relapsed into our gloomy silence. Polly emerged from hers to say, "I expect Matthew's been kidnapped. You'll probably get a note wanting an enormous ransom." "Not very likely," I told her. "We don't keep enormous ransoms round here." Silence closed down again. After a time, Polly found it irksome. She fidgeted. Presently she felt impelled to make conversation. She observed, "When Twinklehooves was kidnapped, they tried to turn him into a pit pony." "Shut up," I told her. "Either shut up or go away." She regarded me with hurt reproof, but decided to go away in a huff. "What about the Sunday papers? They were anxious enough to interview him before," Mary suggested. "You know what that means. Child artist vanishes, guardian angel hero missing, etc." "What's the matter if it helps to find him?" "All right," I told her. "I'll try." There was no news that day. At 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, the phone rang. I grabbed it. "Mr. Gore?" "Yes." "My name is Ballot. You don't know me, but my boy goes to the same school as yours. We've just been reading the paper about it. Shocking business. Very sorry to hear it. No news yet, I suppose?" "No." "Well, look here. The point is, my Lawrence says he saw your Matthew on Friday. He noticed him talking to a man with a big car, a Mercedes, he thinks, a little way down the road from the school. He has an idea that they were arguing about something. Then your Matthew got into the car with the man, and it drove off." "Thanks, Mr. Bowlett. Thank you very much. I'll let the police know at once." "Oh, is that really—" "Yes, I suppose it is. Well, I hope they find him quickly for you." But they did not. The Monday papers took it up. The BBC included it in their local news bulletin. The phone seemed scarcely to stop ringing, but it brought no news of Matthew. That was a dreadful week. What can one do in the face of utter blankness? There was no corroboration of the Bowlet boy's story, but he stuck to it with unshakable conviction. An inquiry at the school failed to discover any other boy who had accepted a lift that evening. So, apparently, it had been Matthew. But why? What possible reason? Even threats, a demand for ransom, would have been more bearable than this silent vanishing into utter nothingness which left our imaginations roving horridly at large. I could feel the tension in Mary growing tighter every day, and dreaded the moment when it should break. The week seemed endless, the weekend that followed it longer still. But then, at about 8:30 on the following Tuesday morning, a small boy paused on the pavement edge of a busy crossing in Birmingham and watched the policeman directing the traffic. When that ahead of him was held up, he crossed to the middle of the road, stationed himself alongside the policeman, waiting patiently to be attended to. Presently, his traffic safely on course for the moment, the policeman bent down. "Hello, sonny. What's your trouble?" he inquired. "Please, sir," said the boy, "I'm afraid I'm sort of lost, and it's difficult because I haven't any money to get home with." The policeman shook his head. "That's bad," he said sympathetically. "And where would home be?" "Hindmere," the boy told him. The policeman stiffened and looked at him with sudden interest. "And what's your name?" he asked carefully. Matthew Gore." "It is, begod. Now you just stand where you are, Matthew. Don't move an inch." He took a microphone out of his breast pocket, pressed a switch, and spoke into it. A squad car drew up beside them a couple of minutes later. "That's service for you. Come to take you home. Hop in now," the policeman told him. "Thank you very much, sir," said Matthew, with his customary respect for the police. They brought him home about 6:00 that evening. Mary had rung me up, and I was there to greet him. So, by request, was Dr. Acott. Matthew seemed to be on very good terms with his escort. He invited them in, but they spoke of duty. Matthew thanked them, we thanked them, and they drove off, narrowly missing a car that was turning in. Its driver introduced himself as Dr. Prost, police surgeon, and we all went inside. We had drinks, and after 10 minutes or so, Dr. Prost spoke quietly to Mary. She took Matthew off in spite of his protests that the police had already given him a super tea. "Well, first of all," said Dr. Prost, as the door closed behind them, "you can put your mind at rest. The boy has come to no harm at all as far as we can tell. Furthermore, he has not even been frightened. It is quite the most considerate kidnapping that I have ever heard of. I see no reason at all for you to fear any ill effects, either physical or mental. He seems to me to be in A1 condition. But having said that, there are one or two things I think I ought to mention, which is why I wanted you, Dr. Acott, to come along. In the first place, he has had a number of injections, a dozen or more in both arms. We have no idea at all what was injected. Whatever it was, it appears to have had no after effects, depressant or otherwise. He makes no complaints of lassitude or any abnormal condition. In fact, he appears to be in excellent spirits. Nevertheless, since there have been these injections, we feel that it would be wise to keep a careful eye on him for any delayed reactions. We have no reason to expect them, but we thought it as well, Doctor, that you should be informed of the possibility." Dr. Acott nodded. Dr. Prost went on. "The second thing is rather curious. Matthew is quite convinced that he has been in a car accident and that his leg was fractured, specifically his right leg. He says that it was in plaster and that the people at the hospital gave him a new treatment which made it mend very quickly. In our examination, we found slight abrasions and a skin condition consistent with the use of a plaster cast on the limb. Naturally, we x-rayed. There was no sign of a break. He paused, frowned into his whiskey, and tossed it off. He went on. He seems to have been treated very well. Everybody at the hospital was friendly and reassuring. The whole thing has the appearance of an elaborate hoax deliberately contrived to be as unalarming to him as possible. In fact, it seems never to have occurred to him that he had been kidnapped. The only two jarring elements that puzzled him were, first, why you and his mother did not go to see him or answer when he wrote to you, and second, the way he was dumped in Birmingham. It looks to us very much as if somebody wanted him out of the way for 10 days or so. He turned a penetrating look on me. If you know or suspect anybody who could have had an interest in doing that, I think you'd be well advised to tell the police. I shook my head. I can't think of any conceivable reason for anyone to want to do such a thing. There's no sense in it, I said. He shrugged. Well, if you can't think of any other explanation, he said, and left it in the air, not looking entirely convinced. He and Dr. Acott conferred briefly and left together a few minutes later, Dr. Acott promising to look in the next day. I found Matthew, Mary, and Polly in the kitchen. The police super tea had left him with some appetite still. I sat down and lit a cigarette. Well now, suppose you tell us all about it, Matthew, I suggested. Oh dear, again? Said Matthew. You haven't told us yet, I pointed out. Matthew took a deep breath. Well, I was just coming home from school, and this car passed me and stopped a little way in front, and a man got out and looked up and down the road in a lost sort of way, he began. The man looked at Matthew, appeared to be about to speak, but hesitated. Then, just as Matthew was passing him, he said, Excuse me, but I wonder if you could help us. We're looking for Densham Road, but none of the roads here seem to have any names. Yes, said Matthew. You turn right at the next corner, then the second on the left. That's Old Lane. Only when you get over the crossroads it's called Densham Road. Thank you. That's very clear, said the man, and turned to the car. Then, on an afterthought, he turned back. I suppose you couldn't tell us which side of it to look for a house called Pointings? A Mr. Gore lives there. It was as easy as that. Of course, Matthew accepted the offer of a lift home. He did not know anything else until he woke up in the hospital. What made you think it was a hospital, though? Mary asked. Well, it looked like one. Well, the way I think hospitals look, said Matthew. I was in a white bed, and the room was all white and bare and terribly clean. And there was a nurse. She was frightfully clean, too. He had discovered that he couldn't move his leg. The nurse told him not to try because it had been broken, and asked him if it hurt. He told her it didn't a bit. She had said, good, and that was because he had been injected with a new anti-something drug that stopped the pain, and not to worry because they were using a wonderful new process which healed bones, particularly young ones, very quickly. There had been 2 or 3 doctors, well, they wore white coats like doctors on television anyway, and they were very friendly and cheerful. There was rather a lot of injecting. He hadn't liked that at first, but didn't mind it much after the first 2 or 3 times. Anyway, it was worth it because the leg hadn't hurt at all. Sometimes it had been a bit boring, but they gave him some books. They hadn't a radio to spare, they told him, but they had let him have a record player with lots of records. The food was jolly good. His chief disappointment was that we had not come to see him. Of course we'd have come if we could, but we'd have no idea where you were, Mary told him. They said they'd told you, and I wrote you 2 letters with the address on the top, Matthew protested. I'm afraid nobody did tell us. And we never got your letters either, I said. What was the address? Aptford House, Wannersh, near Guildford, he told me promptly. You've told the police that? Yes. He went on. Apparently, he'd seen nothing of the place save the room he had been kept in. The view from its window had been undistinguished, a meadow in the foreground, bounded by a hedge with tall trees in it. Sometime the day before yesterday they had taken off the cast, examined his leg, told him it had mended perfectly, and would be as good as ever, and that he'd be able to go home the next day. Actually, they had started in the dark. He did not know the time because there was no clock in the room. He had said goodbye to the nurse. One of the doctors, not in a white coat this time, had taken him downstairs to where there was a big car waiting in front of the house. When they got in the back, the doctor said they'd leave the light on, but had better have the blinds down so as not to dazzle the driver. After they'd started, the doctor produced a pack of cards and did some tricks with them. Then the doctor brought out a couple of vacuum flasks, coffee in one for himself, cocoa in the other for Matthew. Shortly after that, Matthew had fallen asleep. He had woken up feeling rather cold. The car had stopped, and there was daylight outside. When he sat up, he discovered that not only was he all alone, but he was in a different car, which was parked in an utterly unfamiliar street. It was very bewildering. He got out of the car. There were few people walking along the street, but they looked busily on their way somewhere and took no notice of him. At the end of the street he saw its name on the wall of the building. He didn't remember what it was, but above it he read City of Birmingham, which puzzled him greatly. He was now facing a bigger, busier street with a small cafe just opposite. He became aware that he was hungry, but when he felt in his pocket he'd found he'd no money. After that, the only thing to do had seemed to be to find a policeman and put his problems to him. A very sensible thing to do, too, I told him. Yes, said Matthew doubtfully, but they kept on asking so many questions. And they brought you all the way home in a Z car, free? Polly asked. Well, 3 cars, Matthew told her. There was one to the Birmingham police station where they asked a lot of questions, then one to the Hindmere police station where they gave me that super tea and asked all the same questions over again, and then the one here. Gosh, you are lucky, said Polly enviously. When Twinklehoofs was kidnapped, they had to hire a horse box to bring him home. It was very expensive. Kidnapped, Matthew repeated. But... He broke off and became very thoughtful. He turned to me. Was I kidnapped, Daddy? It looks very much like it, I told him. But they were kind people, nice people. They got me better. They weren't a bit like kidnappers. He lapsed into thought again and emerged from it to ask, Do you mean it was all phony? My leg wasn't broken at all? I nodded. I don't believe it. It had plaster on and everything, he protested. Anyway, why? Why should anybody want to kidnap me? He checked and then asked, Did you have to pay a lot of money, Daddy? I shook my head again. No, nothing at all, I assured him. Then it can't have been kidnapping, asserted Matthew. You must be tired out, Mary put in. Give me a kiss, then run along upstairs, both of you. Daddy and I will come up and see you when you're in bed, Matthew. The door closed behind him. Matthew looked at me, her eyes brimming. Then she laid her head on her arms on the table and, for the first time since Matthew had disappeared, she let herself cry.